Good day, fellow adventurer, and welcome. My name is CEO Matt, and today I will be doing my second Pathfinder 2nd Edition Remaster class overview. This one is going to be about the Witch. I'm going to try to keep these videos to about 10 to 12 minutes in length, so please bear with me if I don't cover everything on all the slides. With regards to the Remaster, there's a lot to unpack here. Witch was previously regarded as one of the worst casters in the game, something I touted often. However, with the Remaster, the Witch has gained a series of buffs to make it more unique and overall stronger. To begin, the familiar starts with 4 abilities now at first level, 3 of which are selected by you daily, and 1 of which is chosen by your patron. You also gain your choice of hex, patron's puppet, or phase familiar, the former of which allows you to command your familiar as a free action, while the latter reduces damage your familiar receives. The patron themes have been updated to give more flavor, while the class feats have been buffed to make them more viable in and out of combat. In terms of initial proficiencies, the Witch is scraping the bottom of the barrel with other casters. Their key ability score is Intelligence and gains 6 hit points per level, the lowest out of any class. They are only trained in Perception, Fortitude saves, Reflex saves, Simple Weapons, and Unarmored Defense, but are untrained in Armor. Will saves are Expert, however, which is nice. Skill training is a bit on the high side, which is also nice to see, as you will be most likely starting with 9 skills trained at first level. They're also going to be trained in spell attack rolls and DCs of your spellcasting tradition, which is determined by your patron. The Witch can adopt quite a few roles depending on their patron and spell selection. Classically, the Witch is a debuffer, using their hexes to hinder their foes. Now, with their buffed familiars, they can further lead into this role, but can also instead provide more support options with their hexes and class feats. Thanks to their high intelligence stat, they also make for fantastic librarians. The Witch can also lean into blasting and utility with their spells, but since they don't get 3-4 progression, you might be a little hard-pressed sometimes to do so. Finally, though the Witch gets class feats that involve striking foes, they are too frail to be a consistent physical damage dealer, and should avoid fulfilling a striker role. I do want to mention that the familiar can and should be used for scouting purposes, but my definition of scout lies within the PC, not their pet, which is why I didn't list it here. At first level, the Witch starts with 3 class features, their patron, familiar, and hexes. Your patron determines your spell tradition, skill training, hex cantrip, as well as 1 unique familiar ability. Your familiar then gets 3 abilities which you can prepare daily. Hexes are the Witch's focus spells. You start with a focus pool of 1 point and gain your choice of patron's puppet or phase familiar, which lets you command your familiar or defend it from harm respectively. Do be aware that you can only cast 1 hex per turn, unless you take Hexmaster, a 20th level class feat. Spellcasters usually gain little in the ways of class features, to which the Witch is no exception. They do gain a 10th level spell slot at 19th level, but that's about it. Let's now go over the remastered patrons, of which there are 7. Faith's Flamekeeper is the only divine option to choose from, and lends itself to a more support-favored build. Stoke the Heart is a nice way to give an ally some bonus damage, though it requires you to sustain it and scales modestly. The Familiar of Restored Spirit is a great way to keep that buffed PC in the fight, as it will also give them temporary hit points. The Inscribed one is the only arcane option that witches have, and it favors recall knowledge and offense. Discern Secrets can be a great way to start off a combat, and also provides out-of-combat utility. The Familiar of Flowing Script can be a good way to set up a martial teammate, as it can provide flanking for them. Just be careful that you don't put your familiar too far into harm's way. The Resentment gives the Witch their iconic Evil Eye, which now causes the sickened condition instead of frightened. This is one of the Witch's 3 occult patrons, and the familiar benefit allows debuffed enemies to remain that way. This is great to pair with spells like Slow, which might only last for 1 round. Silence and Snow is one of 2 primal options that the Witch has access to, and focuses on battlefield control and debuffing. Clinging Ice can slow an opponent down, and the familiar benefit can pair with this hex to cause difficult terrain. The primal spell list has a plethora of other battlefield altering spells like Wall of Wind and Grease, and can cause some real problems for enemies focused on movement. Spinner of Threads is the Witch's primary buffing patron, and this occult patron gives you access to Nudge Fate, a niche spell that thankfully pairs excellently with your familiar's Balanced Luck ability. Using the 2 in tandem can swing a hit by 2 points and cause a near miss to turn into a sure hit. Starless Shadow is the last occult patron, and is focused on vision and concealment. A great combo to use here is to move your familiar next to an enemy, and then cast Shroud of Night. So long as they stay adjacent to the target and fail their save, they become Frightened 1, an excellent debuff to inflict. Finally, Wilding Steward is another primal patron, and focuses on self-preservation. Wilding Word makes it more difficult for enemies to attack you, and punishes them for doing so. Your familiar can also come in handy for pointing out hidden and undetected enemies with their additional sense. The Witch's proficiency advancement is equivalent to other 6 hit point casters, which is to say, horrible. The strength lies in their spells, which is on par with other classes, and their familiar does gain an extra ability at 6th, 12th, and 18th level, which is gain expert fortitude and reflex saves at 5th and 9th, with master and will at 17th. Perception and weapons go up at 11, and armor and weapon specialization come 2 levels later. Caster proficiency scales the same way as other primary casters, expert at 7th level, master at 15th, and legendary at 19th. For class feats, witches have a lot to choose from. Starting at level 2, basic lesson and its advanced and greater forms are fantastic ways to gain additional hexes and focus points. Life boost is especially good as it gives fast healing for 4 rounds and does not need to be sustained. This also can possibly circumvent having to spend actions to cast a healing spell on a downed PC. Being a caster, witches don't normally get first level class feats, which is a shame as many of them are quite nice. As a result, humans with the natural ambition ancestry feat are going to have a great time getting their builds off the ground a level earlier. Finally, if you are ever paralyzed by choice, you can always take additional enhancements for your familiar to make it more of an asset in and out of combat. When I choose my spells as a prepared caster, I would try to find ways to incorporate spells that would be specifically useful for my adventuring day. But because there are too many spells that can fall under this niche, I'm going to provide some stock spells that are reliable for your general adventuring day. With my spell slots, I'd like to keep a good balance of offense, defense, and utility, just to keep things even and versatile. Please note that the universal cantrips presented should be added to your list for all the sample builds I provide. In terms of archetypes, you have a few choices to really get your builds off the ground. Familiar Master is a solid choice if you'd like to give your familiar even more abilities. Lore Master is a good catch-all to recall knowledge, synergizing nicely with all patrons except Primal, since Legendary in nature won't get you the Lore Master lore buff. Alchemist is a niche option, but it synergizes nicely with your intelligence. It allows you to fall into more of a support role to provide the team with buffs and healing through elixirs. It can also be used in a pinch to provide bomb support to target weaknesses. Playing a witch can be as simple or complex as you would like it to be. In exploration mode, repeating a spell or detecting magic is probably your go-to, as finding out if certain objects or areas near you are magical can be vital information to glean. In downtime mode, you will probably want to make use of your high intelligence stat to either learn a new spell, craft new items, or earn income. Exploration mode can vary wildly based on your choice of spells and patron. Generally speaking, I like to start combat with debuffs courtesy of hexes, and position my familiar to make use of its patron ability. After that, I would tend to heal allies with Soothe or Battle Medicine, buff with Guidance, and blast only sparingly to finish off a weakened foe. This is a classic debuffer witch build, which utilizes the combo of Bon Mo and Evil Eye to hinder opponents. Do keep in mind that Bon Mo has a linguistic trait, and as such will require you to share a common language with your target. Not a problem, as you start with 6, and can take Comprehend Language as a 3rd rank spell to further enhance this ability. The second build is all about recalling knowledge. Under skill training, this build will receive 2 more skill trainings as well as Elven lore, but I unfortunately couldn't fit it on the slide. These should go into nature and religion to round out the build's knowledge skills, and Lore Master is an easy 2nd level dedication feat. However, it should be noted that unless you are playing with free archetype, you will be delaying your basic lesson until 4th level. Because this build has the arcane tradition, spells here will focus a bit more on offense. The Cauldron Witch wants to spend as much downtime as possible in order to give your allies some additional buffs throughout the day. Healing potions are no-brainers, but this also opens up avenues for other utilities, such as flying or invisibility. This build leans heavily into a support role and should be treated as such. This final build wants to use their living hair to debuff enemies after 4th level, when they pick up Sympathetic Strike and Needle of Vengeance. This uses the Spinner of Threads patron in order to gain Sure Strike and some much needed AC, though one could instead opt for the Resentment for Evil Eye. It is a bit of a late bloomer, so be aware of this chassis' early game limitations. To conclude, I am very relieved to see that Paizo has given the love to the witch that it so desperately needed. The unique familiar abilities, courtesy of the updated patrons, bless the witch with a bevy of new playstyles and many more options in combat. New and improved class feats give the witch additional avenues to take, but their poor bases, middling advancement, and lack of spell slots are a hindrance, especially at lower levels. Overall, I give the witch a rating of A-, the 3rd highest rating on my list because I don't have an A rank, just A+ and A-. They can fulfill a variety of roles, but depending on their patron, will want to focus on just 1 or 2 at a time. I believe the best roles that the witch can and should fill are debuffer and support. Making life easier for other characters in the party is easy and simple to do. Being an int-based class, taking the Lore Master archetype is a no-brainer for a catch-all recall knowledge based on your key ability score. With their few spell slots, I don't believe the witch is particularly suited for a blaster or utility role. It is imperative that each of their resources can be used within an adventuring day, so in the case that you cannot prepare for it, it's better to take more generally useful spells. As this is a role-playing game, you should feel more than welcome to come up with your own way to play a witch. However you decide to build your witch is certainly up to you, the viewer, but this video here is to act as a guide to highlight the witch's strengths and weaknesses, and what you should look out for when playing as one. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel for additional content. I plan on releasing one video of this type every week until I've covered every class, so do stay tuned. I currently do not have plans on doing these videos in any sort of order, but we'll make sure that every class is covered. You can check out the slides in the description below, and of course, have a great day.